everybody. It's November 30th, 2016. Not to date myself, but whatever. Today is a very special day as it marks the 4-year anniversary of my appearance on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Now, I know I'm hardly the only person who's ever been on a game show. I know Amazing Phil was on The Weakest Link, and Mallory Ortberg from The Toast was on Jeopardy, amongst a couple of my other friends here and there, not like I know them. But it's something that comes up every so often, and people are like, Elyse, you were on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? How does that even work? So I figured, alright, let's take this time to kind of go into detail for hopefully the last time, because I know my sister gets so tired of this story, because she's heard it about 1 billion freaking times at this point. But let's talk about me and Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Warning, what you are about to see is Elyse with a very different hair color. You may not recognize her initially. Viewer discretion is advised.
So anyway, let's go back in time. The year is 2012. I am 24 years old. I've been out of grad school for about a year and not having any luck in the job market. I'm living at home with my parents. I'm running lots of errands for them and my grandmother. Barely scraping by. Not a single bite in any industry is getting back to me. Kinda sounds familiar, but hey. My dad is retired. And my dad watches a lot of daytime television. So after the daily news, it would be 12:30 every day on Channel 7, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And I've always been pretty good with trivia. I'm really good at remembering stupid little tidbits of information. So one day my dad was like, "Hey Elyse, they're doing auditions, you should apply." So I said, oh, what the hell do I have to lose? I went upstairs, ran onto my computer, and filled out the form. It was a pretty simple form. It was just like your name, your phone number, your address, and hours you'd be available, or something like that. I don't exactly remember. Sent it off, whatever. 2 weeks later, I got an email saying, congratulations, you're coming in to take the test. Now, when I say coming in, that typically means New York City. And since I'm pretty local, it's not too bad for me. It was a 45-minute train journey or something like that. I don't know. All I remember is that we scheduled the date was scheduled for just after Memorial Day. So it was late May of that year. And the train was late. So I remember thinking I wasn't going to make it. I was running uptown. And I actually did miss my initial test time, but the people at the door were like, oh, just take the next one at 6 o'clock. It's not going to be that bad. So I'm like, all right, fine. So I'm standing in line with, I must have been like the 7th or 8th person in line. And, I'm from around here, even though I'm not from the city. I still kind of know my way around it. I remember the guy 2 people in front of me was from freaking Anchorage. He legitimately flew out from Anchorage, Alaska to New York City to take the entrance exam for this test. Now, the entrance exam isn't a guarantee. You don't know if you're going to pass it. You don't know what's going to happen at that point. So I was just kind of like, whoa, alright, this is maybe a bit more serious than I thought. I don't know. Hashtag benefits of living close to New York City. Hashtag Jersey girl till I die. Hashtags, whatever. So finally, time goes up and all of us file into, I guess it was the cafeteria of the ABC building. And it was me and the people that were standing with me in line, and then people just kept coming and coming and coming and coming. And I swear there must have been 7,500 people in the room. So I was like, whoa, okay. So they sit you down forward a table to take a multiple choice test, and it's a Scantron, so I'm like, great, it's middle school all over again. You got your number 2 pencil, you're filling out the bubbles, and everybody's assigned a number. So they said, well, not that many people will be called, but if you hear your number, you move on to the next round. So I'm like, alright, there's 1 million people in this room, may as well just take the test. And you got like a magnet and a pencil, as, you know, even if you didn't make it through the contestant pool, you still got something out of it. So, woo. So I remember just sitting there, and they give you 10 minutes for the exam. So you're sitting in complete silence with, you know, dozens of strangers at this point. And I remember the questions being really easy. I remember that there was a question about Johnny Cash, which, cool, great, music, give me that, I'm good at that. I think the only question that I definitely guessed on instead of having a concrete answer for was one about putting the ages of the Kardashian sisters in order. I still don't know that. I think Kim's the oldest. I don't know. Doesn't come up all that often. So anyway, you know, we're waiting for them to file through our tests, to run them through the machine. And the producer girl comes by and she says, okay, she starts rattling off numbers. And mine was one of them, which was like, whoa, okay, cool, this is awesome, I'm doing something. And I remember seeing all of the older people sitting around, because there's a lot of like retirees, a lot of people who had been out of work on disability because they were injured on the job. And I almost felt bad that I got called and they didn't, but they were saying how difficult all the questions were, and I'm thinking to myself, this is one of the easiest tests I've ever taken. So that moved me on to the second round. And the second round of auditions was like a one-on-one interview with a producer. Now, before you'd gotten there, they'd sent you an email with a couple of things. One was basically like a survey to fill out about yourself. They wanted to know like little anecdotes, cool things about yourself. You know, the things that were kind of like the flavor text of what would go on if you were actually on the show. Things for the host to ask you about during downtime. So I remember putting down stories about when I was in Argentina for field camp, and a stupid dance that I did around the living room, and talked about my tattoos a bit. And the producer was a nice dude, you know, and I guess they thought that whatever I was putting out was something they wanted to pick up, and they scuttled me onto the third round. It went from like this group of almost 100 to a group of 8, and that 8 went down to a group of 4. So I'm like, whoa, okay, something good's going on. So then the third one happened. And this was another producer with like one of those flip mini cams. I don't know if you guys remember those, but there were these tiny handheld camcorders, I guess before people started filming things on their phones predominantly. And he had me stand in front of a wall and ask me a bunch of questions. And he's like, you know, feel free to engage with them. So I remember them really wanting you to kind of like, you know, pad it out a little bit. Talk about the question, logic out how you got there, things like that. And I remember them asking me a question about a sandwich. And I remember them asking me a question about scarab beetles. That was that. The guy shook my hand. He said, we'll be in touch whether or not you get in. Cool, great. So I, you know, make my way back home. Walking fast, faces past, and I'm homebound. Doodle-doo. And that was that. And it was like July, and I was cleaning off the table for 4th of July something. And I look on my place, and there's a postcard with the Millionaire logo. And I'm like, Mom, when the hell did this get here? She's like, oh, it's been here for weeks. You didn't see it? And I've kept it. I've kept everything. It's basically, I don't know if you guys can read it, but it says, congratulations, you have been selected to be placed in the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire contestant player pool. You are now eligible to be selected as a contestant on future episodes of the program. If you are selected to be a contestant, a representative will contact you. Being in the contestant player pool does not guarantee that you will be a contestant on the show. And I was like, okay, so this is great. And I went immediately into daydream mode. You know, what happened? And I was really practical about things. I wasn't like, oh, what if I win $1 million? Because nobody's won $1 million on the show. It's so infrequent. I think there's like $15 million winners on the US show in the entire history that it's been on. So I'm like, that's not going to happen. So I thought more practical, like, okay, what if I win $100,000? And I remember going onto my live journal and just making a list of all the things that I would pay off my student loans, and I'd pay off my credit card, and I'd buy a ticket for Claire, my best friend in Scotland, to come visit me. And it was, I opened it, I asked my friends, what would you do if you had this money? And it was fun to just kind of daydream about that, to see, what people would do were they put into a position where they had a lot more than they were expecting. So that was that. That was July at that point. Come August, I had received a notification from a company that they decided they wanted to take a chance on me and offered me a job, which was great. I'd kind of put Millionaire in the back of my head at this point. I'm like, whatever, it may happen, it may not happen. It's been fun enough. So I started that job in September of that year. And 3 weeks into that, I get a phone call on my cell phone with a 212 area code. Now, 212 area codes, if you've grown up around here, that's Manhattan. That's New York City. So I can't answer the phone, I'm at work. So it goes to voicemail. And as soon as it goes to voicemail, I run outside and check it. And it was something like, "Hi Elyse, I'm blah 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 person from Millionaire. We've got a really exciting opportunity for you, but please call us back, because if you don't call us back by the end of the day, we're gonna have to move on." So I was like, oh my god, they're actually gonna do this! So I ran out back to the, I was in the warehouse at work where they had all the storage for the equipment, and I'm on the phone with this Millionaire producer, and she goes, "Yeah, we want you to come down make sure your schedule is clear next Thursday and then the Monday after that." She was like, "Oh my god! They want me on the show." They asked me a bunch of questions, and I was like, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. So I remember going back inside, kind of like shaking and nervous because, oh my god, this is actually happening. And I went to go talk to my supervisor, and I'm like, "Lisa, they want me to be on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire." And she goes, "Well, I can't give you the permission to take the time off because you've only been here for 3 weeks. Go talk to Ron, who was the interim, director at the time." So I went over to talk to Ron, and he goes, "Well, you can do it, but just know it's going to be unpaid. You're not going to get the day off. You're not going to get paid day off for it." And I looked at him and I was like, "Oh, don't worry, I will." I was so sassy about it. I'm like, wow, they probably could have fired me over that one, but they were cool about it. I'm like, okay, so I get unpaid time off for this. That's cool. And I remember there was a lot of back and forth communication with the producer because you had to have specific clothing. Like, you couldn't wear a shirt with a pattern because it would distract on camera. And you had to have, solid colors. And I was freaking out because, I wear a lot of black, but a lot of the stuff I had at the time was, little tiny colors. No green. Couldn't wear green. And I remember I also had to get a waiver signed by my tattoo artist because they wanted to show Teacup on TV, and they wanted to make sure that they had explicit permission to do so. And I'm like, well, it's on my body. You kind of have to show my arms sometimes. But I went down to talk to Chuck, and he was like, "Yeah, dude, that's fucking cool. Go ahead." And he signed off on it, and I got it back in time. And that was pretty great. So they told me that I could have up to 10 people in the audience with me. But everybody I knew at the time worked a full-time job or doesn't travel into the city. So the only person who was able to come with me was my then boyfriend. And he's an asshole, so we don't talk about him anymore, but he may show up in one of these clips, whatever. Eat it, whatever. So I had to be in the city that day at 7 a.m. So I got up, it was 4:30 in the morning. I got everything all ready, put full face of makeup on. Boyfriend came with me, and we took the first train into the city, and we made it just in time. I guess the building that they filmed everything at, they filmed Millionaire in the same building as The View. So people who were waiting around for the audience actually sometimes saw some guests that were going to be on The View, and I didn't. But they kind of, they usher you all in, and I think there were about maybe 8 or 9 of us. Something like that. So we get there, they kind of, put more makeup on us to get us stage ready. And around 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, they brought us down to the studio. Which, whoa, that was trippy. It was beautiful because I'd never seen anything quite like it before. The floors were broken mirrors with plexiglass over it, so everything was reflecting and shiny, and it's like, you know those, a couple like weeks ago, there was that one meme going around with the 80s look? It was that. It was that. So, they line us up, and they ask us, they all give us like an example question. The first person in line, she got her question wrong. And next was me, and I was, getting there, I was answering my question. They're like, well, we've never had two people in a row get their questions wrong. And I was like, and we still aren't! And I was like, oh, Jesus Christ. Way to scare me. I'm nervous at this, because, like, with Millionaire, you can't really study for it. They just throw you to the wolves. How do you prepare for something as random as that? Like, I know people go into Jeopardy having studied dozens and dozens of things for years and years, and I went in completely unprepared. Like, if I know it, I know it. If I don't, I don't. It was only college in that respect. So then we get back to the green room, and we wait. And we wait, and we wait. Because you can't watch the show as it's going on. They need you secluded. And they took all of our phones, and they locked them in a box. We couldn't have tablets. We couldn't have laptops. We couldn't have iPods. I mean, this is 2012. People were still not, I didn't have a smartphone. We couldn't have books. The only things that we could do were talk to each other. We could play a game of Pictionary, which was, okay, cool. Or we could watch old episodes of the show, which we mostly settled on. We wanted to see, just kind of what we were going into. And that was rad. And the more I watched the show, the more I was like, yeah, okay, I'm getting answers right. I'm feeling pretty confident about this. This is good. So like I said, we started about 10 o'clock in the morning with the filming, and 4 o'clock rolls by, and they finally call me to get mic'd up. I was like, oh, thank goodness. The other thing I remember about the room is that there was a big purple fluffy blanket. And it was like the most comfortable, because it was really cold back there, so I just like took to this blanket. And one of the producers like, yeah, we had Celebrity Week last week, and Paula Deen was here, and she was freezing, so they had us run out and get that for her. So here I am, snuggled up on a sofa in front of like a dozen other strangers with Paula Deen's blanket. Anyway, so they finally get me mic'd up, and they bring me out into the wings. I guess Meredith Vieira had hurt her foot. She was the host at the time. So usually what they had people do was they had people walk on, or they had her walk on, and she couldn't do that because she was injured. So she was at the podium. They're like, all right, just go to the podium. You'll be there when she gets done. Okay, fine. So I'm actually getting a little nervous remembering this because it was so intense. And Meredith Vieira comes out, and she is this tiny, tiny woman, and I am big. Like, I don't know if you guys have noticed that. I'm pretty big. So there's this tiny, tiny, minuscule woman, and she's very, very sweet. Very, very warm, and assuaged a lot of my fears. She was like, no, you got this. You'll be good. What's your name again? Elsie? And I'm like, it's Elyse. So that was I'm like, oh great, they're gonna get my name wrong on public television. Or national television. But they didn't. And she was very good about it. She introduced me. They said that I had a love of like rocks and bugs.
And welcome back to Millionaire. Joining me now, Elyse Peterson from Bridgewater, New Jersey. Elyse is a geologist. You love rocks, fossils, bugs. Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so I guess a trilobite's a bug now. But I got to talk about Teacup and the stuff that I was doing, and it was great. Then the noises happen, the lights go down, it's time to play Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? And I was like, whoa. So, I think the first question they asked me, and there's a link in the description of all of the questions that I was asked, because I'm not going to splice in the whole thing, because I'll get copyright claimed. But there's a link in the description of an interview that I did later with one of the local newspapers that has all of the questions and stuff in there. But the first question they asked me was about, like, retro video games. And I'm like, hey, I got this. This is great. I know this one.
1. Ribbit was an unofficial sequel to what classic arcade game? Centipede, Frogger, Space Invaders, Donkey Kong.
Well, in college, a lot of my friends were really into retro video games, so I could say beyond a shadow of a doubt that the answer is B, Frogger, final.
You are absolutely right.
And the more the questions went on, because the way that it played at the time, like I said, I don't know if this is still how it goes. The first 10 questions or so, all of the dollar values were shuffled. So your first question could be worth $100, it could be worth $25,000, or anything in between. So, first question I answered, bam, no problem. Second question I answered, and the more questions got asked, the more it's like, oh, okay, I'm actually really comfortable with these. I'm answering a lot of good questions. And then they asked me a question about, like, Notorious B.I.G., and I'm like, psh, I know that one.
A rap star born Christopher Wallace is the subject of a recent biopic titled what? Notorious, Walk the Line, I'm Not There, W.
Well, I know that Walk the Line is about Johnny Cash. W, I'm pretty sure is about George W. Bush, but Christopher Wallace was the Notorious B.I.G., may he rest in peace. And I'm gonna go with A, final answer.
Yes, it is Notorious.
And that ended up being my $25,000 question, and I freaked out.
See the money, computer.
Like, $25,000 was more money than I had seen in years, and it's more money than I've seen since then, really. But, oh my god, I jumped up and down, and I ran into the audience to give my then boyfriend a hug, and I was like, oh my god, freaking out. The producers came up to me after that, and they were like, we love you, do more of that. So I'm like, oh, okay, I guess this is what you're going for. Like, I don't want to say that my reactions were forced, because I genuinely was super excited about things, but some of it was a little put on. Like, if I know the answer to the question, I just want to give the answer to the question. I don't want to be like, oh, well, my sister and I do this every year, or some friends of mine in college and I did this, or I have no idea what this is, so I'm gonna sit and look pensive for a little bit and be quiet. I just want to be like, oh, okay, the answer is, Notorious B.I.G. or earthquakes. It was a very strange time. The way the game was played was that those shuffled questions, if you walked away during one of those questions, you would only receive half of the money. And my mindset was, I'm going into this, I'm going to make it to the $100,000 question so I can get all of the money that I earned before then. And I remember, fittingly, that the last of the shuffled questions was about an episode of a TV show that had aired on the night that Bill and Hillary Clinton got married. And I remember saying something like,
What you were thinking.
That was my guess, but I wasn't alive in 1975.
everybody in the audience was just kind of like shooting me daggers, because I was notably young. Everybody else I was in the green room with was at least in their like late 30s, early 40s, and here I am, I'm 24. But I asked the audience, and they were kind enough to tell me that this episode of the show that I was talking about was Saturday Night Live. Answered the question.
B, Saturday Night Live, final answer.
Yeah, it's Saturday Night Live. You got it. You got $63,500. Nice job, audience.
Bam! I made it through all of those questions. I wiped my lifelines, but I also ended up with $63,500. So that put me into the second round of questions. There was, that's when everything went really dark and they just kind of focused on you. And I had no lifelines left, and I was not about to answer a question wrong on national television. So they asked me the first question, and it's something like,
With 32,256 jigsaw pieces, Double Retrospect depicts a montage of 32 works by what artist?
and I had no idea. Like, art, that's Karen's jam. And I know that if she had been there, she would have been in the audience kicking herself to be like, I know this! So I walked away.
So I'm gonna take the money and run.
Final answer?
Final answer.
And I would have guessed the question wrong anyway. I was going to say Andy Warhol, but it was actually Keith Haring. So I walked away with $63,500. And it was surreal. So I'm like walking out I had to sign sign my 1090, which is the tax form. Because they weren't about to take any money out, but they wanted to make sure you have to pay for these yourself. And people were coming up to me left and right, like, oh, I'm from the town next to your hometown, you did great! And I'm like, who are you people? I've never seen you before in my life, but I guess this is exciting for you. Because the people who were in the audience had been there the entire time. They'd been there since 10 o'clock in the morning when filming started. So I'm like, I'm walking back out to the subway and people keep patting me on the back, and I'm not supposed to reveal how I did to anybody that was not already there. Like, I signed a non-disclosure about that. I wasn't supposed to say anything. So literally the only person I could actually talk about it with was my then boyfriend, who was not as excited as I was. Which just goes to show you why he's not my current boyfriend. But anyway, that was a really hard secret to keep because I had to go back to work and everybody was asking me how I did. I'm like, I can't tell you guys. You just gotta watch the show. Then I get an email the week of Thanksgiving that year, and they said, your episode's airing this week. It's Sweep Sweep. So I'm like, oh, okay, cool. The day my episode aired, I was at work, and I sent out like a company-wide email. I was like, hey, if anybody wants to come to the lunchroom at 12:30 to come watch me be on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, you're welcome to. I guess people started taking bets on how well that I'd done because I didn't really lead on. I didn't say, oh, I did great, or oh, I did bad, because I wasn't allowed to because of the NDA. I wasn't allowed to say how I'd done. I wasn't allowed to lead in either direction. And I wasn't allowed to say how many of my lifelines I'd used and what question I'd used them on. So that was interesting. So we get there and we're watching the show and everybody's like freaking out because they're like, oh my God, Elyse, how did you do that? How did you know that? I didn't know half of those questions. I get a phone call from my mom. She's like, you did so great. I'm so proud of you. And I'm like, oh, all of my years of remembering useless knowledge is coming to save me. And that was amazing. I guess nobody expected me to do as well as I'd done. $63,000, like holy shit. So after that, it was just waiting for the check to arrive. And I was out hiking when it showed up. My parents called me and I about had a breakdown that there was a check waiting for me for more money than I had seen in my entire life. I mean, it was almost double my salary. So I get home, I deposit it into my savings account, and I don't touch it. I did not spend $1 of it until after I'd paid my taxes. And if there is one piece of advice that I can give to somebody looking to be on a game show, well, technically there's two. One, go on one that gives you cash prizes exclusively, because if you win a trip or a car or something like that, you still need to pay the taxes on it. And two, when it comes to tax season, work with a legitimate CPA. Don't try to fill out your taxes by yourself. Because the way that I went into it was, okay, yeah, I might have won $63,000 some odd dollars, but all of this money is pure profit for me. I don't care how much I need to pay in taxes because it's going to do things like, fix the roads or things like that. Whatever, that's fine. I'm still ending up positive. And, a lovely CPA, friend of my mother's, helped me out with that for a fee. But I ended up paying, I think it was like $11,000 to the feds and $3,000 to the state, which ultimately, okay, $14,000 out of almost 65, that's fine, take it. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me that I lost that kind of money because I never really had it to begin with. And I did 4 things basically with that money. I paid off all of my student loans from undergrad and grad school. I paid off my credit card at the time, which is something I could stand to do now, but whatever. I bought a plane ticket for my best friend from Scotland to come visit me. And then a year after that, I used the last of my money to buy a plane ticket to visit a friend in Australia. And it's incredible what that did for me. Like, it was an unreal experience. Like, I still can't believe that it happened sometime. And I do have one little thing left. This was a thank you note, basically, that Meredith had written. And I don't know if you guys can read it. It says, "Dear Elyse, you were terrific. So smart and so much fun. Enjoy your $63,500. XOXOXO, Meredith." It's just wild. I know it's kind of, I don't know. I can't even describe it. Like, it's been 4 years and I still think about it. Like, what would have happened if I hadn't been there? You know, I'd be up a creek without a paddle right now. Though if anybody's watching and wants to offer me a job, hey, I'm your gal. But yeah, so that's my Millionaire story. If you guys have any questions about being on a game show or anything related to that, you know, drop them down in the comments and I'll see if I can answer them. Like, I only really know Millionaire, but like I said, I've got some other friends who have been on other shows. And Wheel of Fortune producers, if you're out there and you want somebody rad to be on your show, hey, hit me up. But yeah, I hope you guys all have a great day, and I will see you in the next video. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you liked what you saw, leave a like or a comment, and for even more, hit that subscribe button. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next video. What the fuck was that? Did that even work? Hang on.